IELTS is a task-based test covering the 4 language skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. IELTS test takers receive individual scores for each of the 4 test components. The average of the 4 provides the overall band score. Each of the 4 components is carefully designed to focus on one particular skill. This results in a more equitable form of task design when compared with tests that assess multiple skills simultaneously, and makes it easier to control task difficulty across the many different test versions produced each year. For the organizations that require evidence of English language proficiency, the IELTS approach ensures that the score given for each component of the test is a clear and fair reflection of the test taker's ability in each of the 4 skills. This can be of particular value for professions where some language skills are deemed to be more important than others. For example, in Canada, nurses are required to achieve a higher band score in their IELTS speaking and writing test, while teachers in Australia are required to achieve higher scores in their IELTS speaking and listening test. While IELTS focuses on testing the 4 skills individually, there is inevitably an element of integration in each component, in the same way that language skills are integrated in the real world. Test tasks often entail the use of other skills and are therefore integrated to some degree. For example, in the writing and speaking components, information that is read or heard helps shape the test taker's own production. However, this is carefully controlled to ensure that the test taker is not required to carry out extensive or complex reading and listening in order to respond to the task. This is particularly important because a score for each skill is being reported, and it would be unfair to test takers if their performance in one skill area was compromised by their lack of proficiency in another. Tasks in reading and listening components can involve note-taking, labeling, and completion of tables or flowcharts. Nonetheless, it is important that any task or test items should focus on reading or listening and should not require detailed writing. IELTS results are reported on a 9-band scale, designed to be simple and easy to understand. This scale has remained consistent and has acquired currency around the world over the past 3 decades. There is no pass or fail in IELTS. Rather, all test results are reported on a clear 9-band scale, from 1 the lowest to 9 the highest. Test takers receive an overall band score as well as individual scores for each test component: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Let me explain what each of the 1 to 9 band score means in terms of English proficiency based on IELTS explanation. The lowest score is 0, but in the real world, candidates do not get 0 unless they don't attend the test. So, if you only attend the test and don't do anything else, you at least get 1. None is for non-users, which means the candidate essentially has no ability whatsoever to use the language beyond possibly a few isolated words. Band score 2 shows an intermittent user for whom no real communication is possible except for the most basic information using isolated words or short formulae in familiar situations and to meet immediate needs. This candidate has great difficulty understanding the spoken and written English. Band score 3 is for an extremely limited user who conveys and understands only general meaning in very familiar situations. Frequent breakdowns in communication occur. Limited users achieve 4. Their basic competence is limited to familiar situations and have frequent problems in understanding and expression. They are not able to use complex language at all. Band score 5 shows a modest user who has partial command of the language, coping with overall meaning in most situations, though is likely to make many mistakes. The candidate should be able to handle basic communication in own field. Up to band score 5 are not good at all for most of the applications. Majority of the candidates need to at least achieve 6, with a great portion of them need to get 7 or above for immigration or university applications. Let's see what these higher band scores mean in IELTS language. Band score 6 is for a competent user. They have generally effective command of the language despite some inaccuracies, inappropriate words, and misunderstandings. These users can use and understand fairly complex language, particularly in familiar situations. We are getting more excited. Band score 7 belongs to good users who have operational command of the language, though with occasional inaccuracies, inappropriate words, and misunderstandings in some situations. They generally handle complex language well and understand detailed reasoning. Band score 8 shows very good users. They have fully operational command of the language with only occasional unsystematic inaccuracies and inappropriate words. Misunderstandings only may occur in unfamiliar situations, and they handle complex, detailed argumentation well. And finally, the perfect band score 9 classifies the expert user. Expert users have fully operational command of the language, appropriate, accurate, and fluent with complete understanding. Test takers receive scores on a band scale from 1 to 9. A profile score is reported for each scale. The 4 individual scores are averaged and rounded to produce an overall band score. Overall scores and scores for each component, listening, reading, writing, and speaking, are reported in whole bands or half bands. Test takers receive a test report form, including or listing their overall band score and their sub-scores on each of the 4 components. Each of the component scores is equally weighted. The overall band score is calculated by taking the mean of the total of 4 individual component scores. Overall band scores are reported to the nearest whole or half band. There is a rounding convention applicable in the IELTS test. If the average across the ends in 0.25, it is rounded up to the next half band. And if it ends in 0.75, it is rounded up to the next whole band. Thus, a test taker achieving 6.5 for listening, 6.5 for reading, 5 for writing, and 7 for speaking would be awarded an overall band score of 6.5. Likewise, a test taker achieving 7 for listening, 6.5 for reading, 7 for writing, and 7 for speaking would be awarded an overall band score of 7. IELTS listening and reading papers contain 40 items, and each correct item is awarded 1 mark. The maximum raw score a candidate can achieve on a paper is 40. Band scores ranging from Band 1 to Band 9 are awarded to candidates on the basis of their raw scores. All IELTS tasks are pre-tested before being released as live items. This identifies minor differences in the difficulty level across tests. In order to equate different test versions, the band score boundaries are set so that all candidates' results relate to the same scale of achievement. This means, for example, that the Band 6 may be set at a slightly different raw score across different versions. These tables indicate the mean raw scores achieved by candidates at various levels in each of the listening, academic reading, and general training reading tests. They provide an indication of the number of marks required to achieve a particular band score. The academic and general training tests are graded to the same scale. Academic tests may contain sources featuring more difficult vocabulary or greater complexity of style. It is usual that To secure a given band score, a greater number of questions must be answered correctly on a general training reading component in comparison with academic component. When marking the writing and speaking components, examiners use detailed performance descriptors which describe written and spoken performance at each of the 9 IELTS bands. In writing, examiners award a band score for each of 4 criterion areas, which are task achievement for task 1 or task response for task 2, coherence and cohesion gets another 25%, lexical resource gets the third 25%, and the last quarter belongs to grammatical range and accuracy. In speaking, examiners award a band score for each of 4 criterion areas, which are fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. The 4 criteria are equally weighted. Assessment criteria, or versions of the band descriptors for writing and speaking, have been developed to help stakeholders better understand the level of performance required to attain a particular band score in each of the criterion areas. IELTS examiners undergo intensive face-to-face training and standardization to ensure that they can apply the descriptors. The tables are included in the supplemental sections of this lecture for your reference.